and I will be your goddess of love. God is love. I mean, God is love.
These are statuettes of the goddess of love discovered in the ancient land of Canaan. Her name was Ashtaroth. They look primitive, but hardly pornographic. Neither would they match the descriptions of a devil or a harlot. Religious rituals in her temples were interpreted as young boys wearing feminine clothes with masks of the goddess dancing and prostituting themselves around the pole of Asherah tree. The Torah described a crafted image of the Ashtaroth on the poles of the temples as acts of adultery, sex as a worship. Ashtaroth was ashamed. She was the devil with horns. Ashtaroth temples were discovered in Mesopotamia as Ashtar, in Egypt as Astarate, Greek as Astarte, and Roman as Venus. The land of Canaan, as archaeologists say now, was a loose confederation between city-states and regions with parity among religions. The Torah, however, refers to her as a goddess of the Sidonians, Saida, in Lebanon, but discoveries show that her temples were among the Philistines at Ascalon and Gaza and east of the Jordan River. She was also goddess to South and North Arabia as Ishtar. Egyptian scribes refer to her as Ashtaroth of the Hittite land. Discoveries at ancient ruins reveal that worship in her temples were devoted to prayers and praise to god Baal, her husband in heaven. There were prophets by the hundreds in her temples, and each town had its own temples and parks for religious rituals.
يا ودود.
There are references to her as the Queen of Heavens. Her star was Venus, the most bright star, the evening star. In a mythology from Lebanon, she resurrected her lover, Ashmun. Routes from Yemen, the Gulf, and Saudi Arabia came to pass in the land of Canaan. So was the land route from Egypt and North Africa to Europe and Persia. Southern Palestine was the earliest crossroad of civilizations and free trade. Ritual performances in Ashtaroth temples increased demands for incense, dyes, spices, and pottery. Women jewelry, beauty, and health products were carried on the back of camels and animals for trade in a free and unregulated market economy. Canaanite cities were considered as cities of lust, where people performed sexual activities in temples, and that wives were commanded to perform prostitutions in rituals. Lust was considered the origin of sin, which led to failing away from God. That Ashtaroth temples were centers for prostitutions and witchcraft. Canaanites outing to grove of Asherah trees that bore fruits was an act of sexual worship. The Torah associates that tree as a symbol of lust and sex as worship. The Baal fertility ritual was regarded as an act of lust and homosexuals. The message from God to the Hebrews was clear as the Torah stated. Break down altar of the Baal and cut down the Asherah beside it. Burn high places, sacred stones, and Asherah upon every lofty hill. Nations, you shall burn their Asherah with fire.
Barbarian peasants!
Most of Ashtaroth temples, however, survived the early Israelite invasion despite the breakdown of altars and burnings. The two religions coexisted during King Solomon's reign, where he married to a Canaanite princess and paid respect to Ashtaroth and repaired her temples. King Ahab married to Jezebel, a Canaanite princess from Sidon. Her name meant, "Where is the prince?" Baal's followers chanted, "Where is the prince?" as a prayer to encourage the return of visitations. Temples and statues of Ashtaroth continue to exist in towns and major crossroads until the advent of Christianity. Life of Saint Porphyry, Bishop of Gaza, a book written by Mark the Deacon, the biographer and assistant to Bishop Ruferi, who ruled Gaza for 40 years between 347 and 420. The bishop referred to the temple of Ashtaroth of Marnes in Gaza as the house of pagan madmen. The bishop attended a prayer in the temple and he described it as idle madness gathered together in the temple of Marnes and made prayers and sacrifices for 7 days to quell a drought in the region. A woman told the bishop,
Speak and hear, and either persuade or be persuaded.
the bishop smote her tongue and muzzled her mouth because of Satan in her. The bishop travels to Constantinople and returned to Gaza by sea with the emperor's consent to demolish the pagan temples and overturn the idols. He was welcomed by his congregation and walked back at night through the four-way square where a marble statue of Ashtaroth stood at the crossroad. Some Canaanite women were honoring the statue by kindling lamps and burning incense. When the Christian party arrived to the sculpture, they prompted the demon who dwelt in the statue to come out of the marble. In great confusion, the statue was cast down by itself and broke into many pieces. The biographer recorded that there were in the city 8 public temples of idols of Aphrodite and Ashtaroth and the Marnes, which accounted to be more famous than all the temples in the world. The emperor's vizier from Caesarea delivered in a public forum the imperial letter, which commanded that the idols and their temples be overturned and given into the fire. The crowd cried out with loud voices that the governor sent soldiers among them, who beat them with clubs and proceeded to demolish and burn temples and houses that exhibited statues or books on Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth temples had continued to exist in the land of Canaan until the coming of the Arab Muslims, who adopted the same version of the Torah about Ashtaroth and her followers, an option to embrace Islam, or Caesarea, the capital of the governor of Palestine, then fell to the Muslims in 636. The Canaanites had no other choice but to abandon their beliefs in Ashtaroth and her temples. Muslim Arabs call the pre-Islamic ages as the era of ignorance and destroyed just about every statue and sculpture with a head of a human. Astrology led the way to astronomy, to travel the space, pagan ways of trading, socializing, and praying. Her image as a goddess of love, beauty, and seductive power never ceased. She is still popular among women and everywhere. Every woman wants to be a goddess, as Ashtaroth was. It is the old versus the modern living style. Sorry, old fathers, but you really messed this one up.